Ladies and gentlemen, our last mentor for the evening is Tamzin. Tamzin, please present your ideas.
Hi, everyone. Right. Can everyone see it?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to be talking to you, as I always do, about my specific experience with Artfundi. I'm just going to be sharing it with you. I'm kind of closer to you guys than the other side of the end of the mentor kind of ladder, if you like. So hopefully that's useful. I'm going to recap on this slide from my previous presentation as a reminder to make sure that you pick the customers who have a real problem and will be willing to pay. So how do you identify those real customers? And this is again a reiteration of the just presentation that we've just had before, is looking at their pain versus just a discomfort. So there will be levels, and what I found when I was doing Artfundi, which is a software solution I had created for myself initially when I owned an art gallery in Cape Town. And so I had lived with it as the feeler of the pain, if you like. So I knew that pain really well. And what I had to be really, really careful of when I went out into the market was to be sure that what I had solved for myself, what I felt as a pain, because I was in a particular market, I was at a particular level in that market, I was a kind of young gallery, that other galleries, would it be the same level of pain for them, or would it be a discomfort for them? So that was kind of something I had to be aware of. Luckily, in my background, I'm a researcher, so I went straight into research, which is this phase that you're in now, and did quite a lot of it and got past that and found the pain. Actually, I found quite a few pains. And again, you kind of working out which are the bigger ones and which ones you can attend to later, maybe if they're discomforts. And the reason that this distinction is important is because you have a limited set of resources, especially in the early phases. I wasted a lot. And one of the things that I could have done better was planned the kind of phases in terms of customers. So I found in the art industry, there were different customers. I'd come from it as a gallery. I knew the gallery world, but when you're a gallery, you're dealing with artists on a daily basis, and you're dealing with collectors on a daily basis, and you're all part of this ecosystem and part of this world. So my initial reaction was to go, it's a niche already, I must go for all of them, because it's what all my competitors are doing. But the competitors have been around for 15 years. What I would have done better was to launch just to galleries. So, and then planned to phase in the artists later and the collectors later. So I've sort of found that added unnecessary resource strain and difficulty at the beginning. Also, when it comes to fundraising, I went on a couple of accelerator programs, and this was really great advice that I was given, and it really stuck. This thing around clarity. So even then, it was a little bit later, it kind of helped me to focus in on the core market. Now I'm doing these planned customer phases a little bit better. So find the pain and focus on the customer who has it the most, even if there are periphery customers who you will address later on. Focus on that. We're now getting to those later on ones. It's quite nice because I've always had them in my mind, but it does help at the beginning to focus. So one of the things I did around finding and articulating the problem, and the real problem that real customer had was, and I'm still doing this idea of mission critical. Are we going to be mission critical to these guys? So I judge it as, would they cry if we took it away? And we literally asked them this question, and they say yes. So some of them say yes, and some of them say, oh, you know. So those who say, leave them. Those who say yes, those are the ones we need to focus on. They don't want to tell their competitors about us, which is interesting. So they don't want to tell their competitors in their industry about us because they feel like we are a secret weapon to them getting ahead of their competitors. They love us that much that they find the solution that helpful that they feel if the competitor has it as well, they'll lose their kind of edge. So that's interesting. We actually I got caught in the middle of quite a cat fight around this competitor thing, where two customers, similar customers, both came to me to offer me money to take the other one down off the system. So it was horrible, but it was also interesting that we were that mission critical. They will pay us first as opposed to other creditors, and they regularly thank us for it. Now, we're not getting this right with everyone all the time, but it helps us to identify those customers that we are the most mission critical for. So it's really clarified who we are targeting and helped us to go for them. And we get the most joy as well. The great thing about getting that right is we get the most joy. These are the people who literally write us letters saying, you've changed my life. I didn't believe this could be possible. And they're like raving fans. So it's wonderful. So if you get that right. Now, getting to the real insights. This is an area that I've specialized in for many, many years. Even before becoming an entrepreneur, I consulted to big international companies about how to turn their research departments into insights departments. They used to pay me a huge amount of money to do this for them. And I'm using it in quite interesting ways as an entrepreneur as well. And I think you'll find it as well during this research phase of yours. And I'll advise you to think about the research you're doing in terms of customer development in a creative way as well as an analytical way. So the analytical way will be to do the surveys, ask the questions, ask the open-ended questions, ask the close-ended questions, whatever you need to do. The creative way is really getting down to the insights, which might not be the what, might not be the extracting the facts or the truth, or that's all part of the information side, which you need, but it's the why. And people, the consumers can't always articulate the why. And the research itself will give you answers to the questions, because you'll ask the question, they'll give you the answer. They're not always right, even though they've told you what they think. And you find that quite often with willingness to pay research. When the thing comes out, it doesn't always what they said, but they said they would be willing to pay that amount. And now they're not willing to pay that amount because the circumstance is different within the branding or the competitive set or the way that it's being delivered to them or whatever, because they couldn't imagine that before. So you need to think about how you can extract the insights from the answers. I'll share a little story with you, which isn't to do with ArtFundy, but it's interesting. And I used this idea of extracting insights quite successfully in a couple of different businesses to get business. So it can also be a way to kind of ignite your customers' imagination. So I wanted to get into, when I launched my consulting company the first time, I didn't sort of want to just randomly wait for the business to come to me. I wanted to go and get very specific businesses. And I had identified which companies I wanted to do consulting for. And I needed a foot in the door. So I hired somebody to walk around with me for one day, blindfolded. Well, we put eye patches on him, and he walked on my arm, like the hospital, like you've had an eye operation, you've come back from the hospital. So it kind of looked realistic. And I said to him, I'm going to take you to a few different places. So I told him where we were going. So I said, we're going to go to a car showroom, and we're going to ask the salesperson for information about the car, as if I'm shopping for a car and I've just fetched you from the hospital and you're just with me. And I just want you to listen and observe. And when we leave, I want you to tell me, if you can, what brand of car showroom we were in. And I'm going to take you to the airport, and we're going to go up to the counter and buy a ticket for a flight somewhere. And I want you to tell me which brand it is. And what was interesting about that whole day experience was that he was using everything other than sight to deduce from the environment the cues he thought he needed to give me the answers to the questions. And then I took the result, just took his, so it's not research because there's one person. But I then went to the marketing director of Kulula Airlines and said, I have some insight for you about your brand and the fact that you're trying to deliver a brand that's funky and fun, but you're accidentally delivering a brand that's quite formal. Would you like to know about that? Would you like to hear? Yes, please. How quickly can you get into my office? And the same with the car showroom, etc., etc. We simply, when this guy was at the airline counter, he was feeling the countertop. So his response to me afterwards was, it felt cheap, but it sounded formal. So I'm confused, because it sounded like British Airways, but it felt like the cheapest airline on the market, because the counters they had were kind of plastic, but the ergonomics of the seating, the person sort of addressing you was much lower than you on the counter. So, and when you stretch like that, it changes your voice and it becomes quite formal. And immediately after this meeting with Kulula, they were busy developing, redesigning their kind of airline service desks. They made them higher so that everyone would be at eye contact and you'd get this more natural voice. So that's what I mean by insight. And it doesn't always come from direct answers to questions, because there's no way that guy you would have just used sight. So observation, listening, trying different things is also a great way of experimenting with insights. When it came to our research interpretation, this is how we analyzed our interview data. So first, we pulled out all our kind of pre-research assumptions. It's very important to write those down, because you forget afterwards because they shift. So write them down and then check your results against the assumptions. You surprise yourself. And then count and report the simple numbers. So how many of which demographics said what, obviously. But be careful not to report them as stats. I see this mistake so often. So you sample 30 people and then 5 of them said something and 10 of them said something else, and suddenly there's a statistic of a percentage being quoted. It's not significant, so you can't report it as stats. And look for convergence. So convergence is where you expected, in your assumptions, you expected there to be differences, but you actually found similarities. That's really interesting to look out for. And then look out for divergence, where you expected things to be similar. Maybe you expect women and men to have the same attitude to something, and there's a difference. So suddenly, you know, you're going to have to deal with gender segmentation in that particular product or whatever. And ask yourself, this is when you're analyzing the data, ask yourself why, constantly. Why would they be that? Why would they feel that way? Why would there be that difference? Why would there be that similarity? Why were my assumptions wrong? And then you would have done, hopefully, some observation or insights type work, as well as the questions. Check those notes against the things you got from the customers. So what they're saying versus maybe what they're doing or how they're behaving. You see that a lot in shopping malls. I did a lot of multi-sensory research with retailers around putting scents into stores to stimulate sales, etc. And it was very, very interesting what would happen and how people would behave, so that you would think they're all going to go for a particular offer because it's on a gondola inn, but then they go somewhere else and they don't even know that they're doing it. So they're just being attracted by some color or some movement or whatever. So it's important to do the observation. And then what I did was I grouped the pains and the needs by category and then kind of mapped the results for myself. It's always useful to give yourself a visual of what's going on. And then what was quite important was, since we're asking them, they're going to tell us what they think, and you have to just listen to it. They are going to offer suggestions. They're going to tell you where you've got a bad idea, good idea, whatever. All you have to do is thank them, but get back to them afterwards with a thank you. So get back to them afterwards with a note on how you plan to address it, even though it's going to be later on, or let them know when you've done it. So this was about kind of nurturing them in a sequence, a kind of nurture sequence, and keeping track of the people, because ultimately the people that you interviewed might later on become customers or might recommend you to someone else. So they've got this sense of, they've been on this journey with you. They've got this sense of being helpers. So nurture that and keep them with you, add them to your newsletter, etc. And show them the product later on if you can, and remind them that they helped you get there, and ask them their updated opinion. It's turned quite a few pre-researchers into customers, even a couple of investors that have come along that route. So I thought I'd share this with you because it happened to me just recently. And we've been changing and we've been experimenting with different ways of dealing with people who cancel the free trial, because your free trial is still research. In our case, it's a tech product, so people self-serve it off the internet. So they go on our website and they take the free trial. We've obviously got automation built into the back end to deliver the free trial sequence of emails they get and videos that pop up and whatever else, and they can cancel it. So they just click the cancellation button. And obviously we want to know why they've canceled it. So we had all these different messages. We were getting very poor results in terms of people telling us anything. They just ignore your mail to request why. Please fill in this form or tell us why. We had a little tick box questionnaire. None of it was working. And this letter has worked incredibly well. So she had said to me, please cancel my, she couldn't find the cancel button, and mailed me, mailed our care line, please cancel my system for me before the trial ends. So I wrote this letter back manually. And dear Jenny, I'm sorry to hear that the system has not met your needs. I would very much like to understand where we missed what you were needing so that we can try to improve. It means a lot to us. Please, would you describe what was missing or difficult for you? We have actioned your account cancellation and you will not be billed. I look forward to hearing from you if you would do us that kindness. Signed from the CEO, founder and CEO. And she mailed back and said, actually, I just didn't know where to start. I had tried WordPress and tried to build something, and I'm tired, and I just decided I'm going to get someone to do it for me. And then I was able to write back to her and say, I can offer you that done for you service for a little extra. And let me hop on a demo and show you how we can solve exactly what you need. And we did that. And she has it gave us more than double the revenue we would have normally got from that normal trial customer. And she has turned into an absolute raving fan and asked us, please, where can I leave a testimonial? So that was really great. And and that is still, obviously, is still research, even though it seemed like a bad thing at the time. This question, when to abandon ship in terms of your idea, I would say as soon as possible when you know. So when you know that you are going completely in the wrong direction, you will have doubts. We will all have doubts. I've had so many doubts, and it's tough to keep going. But when you know the customer really well and you know you're solving a pain, you know you just haven't solved it perfectly yet, then keep going. When you know it's the wrong customer or they don't have the problem, then you've got to give it up as quickly as possible. Or this happened to me, I told you last time, when the ship won't get you there once it's at full throttle. So I was building a version 2 with a set of developers that I'd inherited, because they'd been subcontracted without my knowledge from the developers I had originally used. And I was battling and eventually got an independent code review, and this guy said, when you scale, it's perfectly fine for now, it'll be fine for launch, but when you scale beyond a certain size, the whole thing's going to come tumbling down. And I had to throw it away. So I since hired that independent code reviewer in-house, and he started again, which has turned out to be great. But I would have done that. I would have had that kind of code review a little earlier if I had to do it again. And when you're burning precious cash and time, like I was then, you have to abandon the ship. So I abandoned the ship in terms of the code that I was building, not the ship in terms of the startup I was building, and not the ship in terms of the customer and the problem I was building. And if in doubt, ask your mentors, ask your advisors. I didn't have enough of those when I started. So it's really great that you guys are in Founder Institute as soon as you are, and test your assumptions against those people all the time. So to end on some tips again, on developing customers, these customer avatars are really a useful exercise. I think it's part of what you're going to do now is creating those avatars, creating those that clarity around really being able to picture that customer, hear their voice, use their language back to them, and keep talking to them so that you can just get that right. You almost, it's like when you're writing a novel and really getting into character, it feels a bit like that, getting to know their pain intimately, and use your own product as a customer. We keep doing that. We're launching a new thing this week built on our own. It's a marketing exercise basically, called Quotes by Living Artists. And it's a marketing exercise, but it's built on our product. So we get back to becoming a user of our own product again. And on the other side, nurturing customers. So during that, giving them free training. It took me too long to get that going as well. And now it's working extremely well. Writing a blog, mailing customers about updates, calling them on the phone. I've always done that. And I'm so glad I've always done that because I've kept close to them that way. And doing kind of business reviews or biannual account reviews with them really adds value, because those things are about giving them a sense that you really care, and also that you are more than just supplying a product or something, but you really care about their success as a business. I'll end on this quote by Nelson Mandela: remember to celebrate milestones as you prepare for the road ahead. We never do that enough, but you guys are going to be reaching those milestones so much faster now that you're on this program. So take a pause as you go along and celebrate them. In fact, every week, celebrate them, because you're doing an amazing job. Thank you.
Thank you.